Welcome once again to Canada, Western Canada, in the Rockies and in Canmore for the last day of a competition series that has been really enjoyable since it started on Thursday with the individual classic races, then the sprints last evening, and today it's the skiathlon, which in historical terms was the double pursuit. We start with the women's competition, 7.5 meters in classic style, 7.5 meters then in freestyle, and it is really a catch me if you can race. Mass start on the first leg to set up the whole competition. The women's competition, 64 athletes from 16 countries racing around some of the most beautiful country you have ever seen. And amongst the contenders today, the likes of Justyna Kowalczyk, already successful here on Thursday, and Keegan Randall, who went to joint points leadership in the overall World Cup as a result of her second place yesterday with Marit Bjørgen. More when we come back for the start. Welcome once again to Canmore, the final day of competition, and you can see it's a chilly 6.7 degrees, and the start time here, the clock just coming up to 11 o'clock in Western Canada on the eastern side of the Rockies. Two journeys, one classic, one freestyle. Mike Dixon alongside myself, David Goldstrom. This the first journey.
This is it. They have to, David, go round this track. It's 3.75, as you said, twice around this in the classic technique. Come into the pit stop, change their skis, change their poles, not their boots, and then we're going round a slightly different track. Parts of the tracks are the same. The skating or the freestyle track is alongside the cut spurs or prepared tracks for the classic. And I would say a slightly more difficult track for the skating, and two times again around a different 3.75 track for the skating.
Put it all together and the journey is 15 kilometers. As you see the start list, Justyna Kowalczyk, who was the winner on Thursday in the individual 10-kilometer classic race, and also Vibeke Skofterud. Keegan Randall was on the start list there. Now, she finished second yesterday to Maiken Faller in the sprint, and that earned her enough points to go up to share the lead on the points side of the overall World Cup rankings. 450 to her, 450 to Marit Bjørgen. But because the absent Marit Bjørgen has rattled off a 5-timer in the first part of the season, on countback with all her victories, Marit Bjørgen still ranked number one, even though she's not here. 100 points for Kowalczyk today could take her ahead to 485 and possibly into the overall lead as we head towards the Tour de Ski, because this is the last big race before it's Christmas holidays. And there is Justyna Kowalczyk, 2, Vibeke Skofterud, 3. When she comes into view will be Keegan Randall for the USA. Here she is from Anchorage in Alaska, and effectively number one in the world at this moment in the race. For Kristin Stormer-Styrer, this is the sort of race that Kristin Stormer-Styrer, at the height of her powers, could really excel at. And 5, Anne Kilonen, who is being pretty effective in the sprints. Mike Dixon, alongside myself, David Goldstrom. 7.5 kilometers, the first journey in classic style, 2 rotations of 3.75 meters. We have 65 athletes actually from 16 countries, and we're almost set to go. Holly Brooks for the United States women's team, which has been a revelation in phase 1, period 1 of the new World Cup season. So everybody on their toes here. Classic racing, stride and glide to get us underway. And you can see it's a bit of a heavy sky over the racers today.
It is, with these cold temperatures, an easy waxing day as they start, David. Double poling is the faster option on this flat terrain. Yes, the waxing, if you remember, this is only 11 o'clock local time. Yesterday the sun was on the tracks at this time, and that would have made the waxing a little more difficult, but very simple at these the track temperature at -9 degrees.
And a little bit of headwind as they head into the first uphill section of the race. And a strong start by the Norwegians, as you would expect. Keegan Randall's about third from the right there in the near side file. Justina Kowalczyk will, I think, try and play a prominent part in all of this race. She'll just be, I think, Mike, just turning the screw all the way along here.
I think I was just trying to get a feel for what Kowalczyk is going to do. Remember, just what, 3 days ago, she won by 14 seconds. It was a 10-kilometer classic then, and that was ahead of Kilonen. And then the Fala was third, 28 seconds behind. So I think Kowalczyk will want to get a good gap between her and the next athlete going into the skating legs. If she can achieve that, she'll be very happy.
Very interesting, because she's going to be strongly challenged in the Tour de Ski by Marit Bjørgen. Not here, but has made it very clear that winning the Tour de Ski is one, if not the major target for her in this season, almost above and before the World Championships in February. But I think it's reasonable, because the World Championships being in the second part of February, there's much more recovery time than there has been in previous years. And also the distance of the races in the Tour de Ski are adjusted, and they're perhaps not quite as arduous, although they're as numerous.
Well, they certainly are. And Justina Kowalczyk, she's going to lose points on Marit Bjørgen in the sprint races, you would expect. So she needs to be extra specially strong in the more distant races on the Tour de Ski. And this is a good practice, if you like. It's good final preparation, I think.
And Kowalczyk up there, Skofterud, you can see their difference in physique. Skofterud is physically quite a strong, powerful athlete. Sort of 10-kilometer journey is her sort of ideal distance. And all through her career, she's had times when she's just physically been out of balance with herself. But when everything comes right, she's a very effective athlete, and particularly in the early part of the season.
Yeah, that seems to be the case earlier part of the season. I think she gets, team fever, cabin fever, where you become a little stale around the same people, the same environment, week on day, week on week. And I'll tell you what, they're all looking forward to the Christmas break, away from the pressures of racing and coming out every day to get yourself up for another race.
And Skofterud in second place there. She was only fourth on Thursday in the 10-kilometer classic. 11 moving up on the near side, Shevchenko. Now she's again an interesting racer. Power to weight ratio, very good. But Shevchenko, well, are the years catching up on her? That's the big question now. She's 37 years of age, just outside on the left when you see her again in the bluish race suit for the Ukraine. And on the right now, you can see her extreme right there. Shevchenko, who's got 4 World Cup victories to her credit, although one has to go back into history to find them. You know, it's 4 years, I think, now, since 5 seasons since she's won, really.
It's a long time, David, but she's showing the flashes of brilliance that she used to have in the 10-kilometer classic, day one here. She certainly was with the pace and finished 9th. Only 44 seconds behind, so she's not missing a lot in her game at the moment.
Just sorting themselves out at the moment. 50 going through. Matrosova of Kazakhstan.
Crawford there, the Canadian, 42.
Yeah, disappointing really for me, Chandra Crawford. She's, in the nicest possible way, virtually a one-trick pony at sprinting, and she's not really managed to develop herself as being a formidable competitor at any other distance, really. It's just the sprints.
Yes, out-and-out sprint. I'm pleased to see that she's stronger. Of course, she made the final yesterday, Chandra Crawford. She's got the confidence back, and that is vital. She lost that, I think, for a short while.
In the yellow, just going through there, 27, Barbara Jastrzębek has made up quite a few places in the first part of the race. 14 going through, that was Denise Herman a little way back. 7 also, Holly Brooks back from the United States. 46 going through, tall Canadian, and that would be Daria Gajova. And I think this is going to be a pretty hard test today for these women. And remember, we've got the men's equivalent that almost follows on immediately after this race is done. as they go through. Well, I know what you appreciate, Mike, because you've been out here so many times. You rate this part of the world, don't you?
I love this part of the world in terms of racing and in terms of training. And I suppose it helps when you're in Europe. It's one thing with all the different languages in Canada, obviously our language as well. And it was lovely to meet the very, very friendly people in this area and supportive to the racers.
Kristin Stormostyra has gone into second place. Just saying hello there to Justyna Kowalczyk by sort of rattling her pole.
Well, it's very totally acceptable. As you say, Styra Stormer just not wanting to ride over the back of the skis of Kowalczyk, so it's track craft to assist the athletes in front of you by pushing their ski pole or them forward.
She was top 10 in the mass start 10-kilometer classic here, and her aim will be to stick very closely to Kowalczyk through the first part of this race here, and to really try and take her on in the freestyle. But Kowalczyk's engine, a very good one, where they can actually try to force her into errors is on the cornering, particularly on the downhill drops. That's where there is something still of Achilles heel. And there's 6 moving up there. That must be Ishida of Japan. She is an excellent racer over 10 kilometers in classic style. This is 7.5 kilometers. It's absolutely her cup of tea.
It really is. But she is, Ishida, more a classic skier than a freestyle. And I know she's put a lot of time and effort into trying to become more technically powerful in the skating technique, the freestyle. But, well, we'll wait and see today. She's certainly staying with the pace now.
Well, she's got to stay with the pace. Actually, she actually needs to win this half of the race to actually set up the second half, so she has a bit of cushion of advantage. Now, Mike, there's also some BMW sprint points to be won in this. Now, these are not sprint points that actually affect this particular race, but they're all added up throughout the season, and ultimately the winner, I think, gets a new car to, I'm not sure whether it's forever or just for a season or so to drive. These days, austerities even hit the car companies, and usually now they lend it to you for a year or two.
I got the impression it was for keeps, and that is the whole season, all the way through from, it started in Kusamo and through to Falun. And in the women's race, there's 2. Chandra Crawford just tripping over her own wax there. The brakes go on the skis often if you hit those pine needles or the markers.
I had to say, she looked awfully uncomfortable, and she was in a patch alone there, which doesn't make life easy.
She was certainly struggling there, David. And today, there's in the women's race, we have 2 intermediate sprints, one in the classic, one in the freestyle, and later on there'll be 4 sprints, bonus sprint blasts for the men.
But they don't actually count for bonus seconds or points or anything in this particular race. And it's Kowalczyk leading the 2 Norwegians, Stormostyra, and then it's Skofterud and Iksanova of Russia would be in about 4th place in the blue with the red. And Justyna Kowalczyk just quite happy here to lead on. And you can see the actual purchase she gets and forcing the other 2. There's Iksanova, Ishida in the purple just behind. And that's 5 breaking away, and just behind there, what is that? That's difficult to see. Looks like Shevchenko possibly just joining that party to make it 7.
We can get a good, we just missed it. There was a great comparison of the technique of Skofterud compared to Kowalczyk. Hopefully we'll see that again. Slight variations in technique. Skofterud had a slightly more relaxed phase within the stride, and as usual, Kowalczyk, she's so powerful, she just pushes on and pushes on, fearless
and remorseless. So 10 going through there. That's Iksanova for Russia, and a decent start by her. Member of the Dynamo Club, experienced, 28 years of age, and 15th on Thursday behind the current leader, Justyna Kowalczyk, so she'll be looking to stay in touch. She was 8th in Kusamo, also over 10 kilometers. And so far, when you look back through her record, the Russian slightly more proficient at the classic discipline than she is at freestyle. So again, very conscious of the fact that she has to keep in touch. You can see her there in 4th place with Lukoil on her little hat, and there's Shevchenko for the Ukraine in the yellow and blue. But you can see Justyna Kowalczyk already, she's done a huge amount of damage to this field.
She's really smashed it up early. I thought it might go out quite gently, but it not at all. Next time round, they'll be going into these pens and switching skis and poles. I must say, David, Skofterud's skis on the right there in bib number 2 were definitely faster on the descent than Kowalczyk's.
13 in the background, that's Ingvild Flugstad-Østberg, who was in the final of last evening's sprint, and makes no bones about the fact that her objective is to one day be #1 in the world in this particular sport. But she knows she's got a great teacher or inspiration from Marit Bjørgen, who she points out is still getting better, and she's 10 years older than her. So out they go on the second of the 3.75 kilometer journeys. So confirmation, it was a feeding station as well, so 1 or 2 taking on a drink. And there you can see it, 5 seconds separating the top 5 or 6. And some, well, experienced Olga Rotcheva there down in 14th place, 7.9 seconds. Really what you've got to have a look at is 1 or 2 athletes who are more proficient in the freestyle leg, trying to make sure that they maintain contact.
That's very true, and in the case of Shevchenko, the Ukrainian, 4.6 seconds. She's still there or thereabouts with the leaders. Now Kowalczyk is upping the tempo again, another attack from her.
Yeah, Storma Styra going with her there, and it's the Russian Iksanova just surpassing Vibeke Skufterud, and there's Ishida, and there's Shevchenko, and it's that little group there in Indian file, and they really are breaking away. And now this is becoming a head-to-head duel. But remember, this is only the first half of the race here, and Justyna Kowalczyk saying, right, I can take you all on, but Kristin Storma Styra really sticking to her task there so well.
And a little strategy as well in there, David, I think. Now Kowalczyk is lining up for those 15 World Cup points if she goes through the first of the sprints in first place, and I think that's where she's put this punishing attack. As you say, only Styra Stormer just able to withstand the tempo, the attack.
As if she needs a new BMW. So there's Kristin Stormer in second place. She's 31 years of age, and that's 2 years older than Justyna. Justyna, perhaps, you see, inviting her to go into the lead, and Kristin, who's a seasoned campaigner, saying, no, thank you very much, I'm very happy, you do the donkey work, I'll just sit on your shoulder, you can be my target.
And irritating, to be honest, when you have an athlete behind you just doing exactly what you're doing, not taking the initiative to pass you.
This is where Kristin really excels here. She's, you know, light, and on the climbing sections of this, it really gives her an edge. Of course, what happens when we come to the downhill sections, you've got Justyna, who's the heavier athlete, and of course that weight counts in when she goes down and goes into the glide. But that said, if it's a corner, that's her Achilles heel, and that's where Kristin can stay with her.
It is, I must say, with Kowalczyk on the cornering, the only one very fast left-hander that we see here. There's 2, in fact, 1 left, 1 right. Kowalczyk's looking much more balanced. I wonder if she has spent some time on with reaction and movement drills.
And at the moment, Vibeke Skofterud not having a happy time there, dropping back. And Ann Kalonen of Finland is not that far behind that little group there. Just seems to have found her rhythm and picking up. But look at these two. They've opened up now. What would that be, Mike? That's a good well, 20 metres?
Well, it's Iksanova trying to pull it back. It is.
Iksanova, yeah.
Iksanova. I think it's only about 12, maybe even 10 seconds now. Iksanova's really put a bit of a pace in to try and close them down.
And there is Shida, goes past Rebecca Skofterud and Shevchenko. Now Kilonen's got them in the sight. And just looking there, 24 coming up, another of the Russians. That's Olga Rotcheva, very experienced racer. And the longer the distance, the better for her. 25 in picture. That's Katarina Smutna, formerly from the Czech Republic, and she's just in front of number 16. That was Virginia de Martin Topranin of Italy in the Azzurri blue. 13, this is Ingvild Ersberg, 27 in the lemon of Slovenia. Barbara Jezerček, who started brightly but has dropped back now. When Justina turned the screw, she was one of the athletes who was really found out. And you can see here two fights happening here, Mike, already. One for first and second, and the other one for the third step on the podium. Now, Ishida really ought to be up with this Russian. That's what she's got to do. She's got to try and close the gap. And 11 coming up there. Shevchenko goes ahead now. Skofterud. Ishida not finding anything, and suddenly Kilonen is almost closed on to them, and also coming there, Rotcheva.
Now the chasing group are fully aware that they need to close this gap down, because the second part of this rotation, it's much easier. There's very limited areas where the strength of Kowalczyk will be able to take much more time out of them. So that's why Iksanova's really charging on now to try and close the gap.
And the Swedes really, I think that's Ida Ingsmar Dotter in what would be the third group, but the front two have really broken away. And Kristin Stormer-Styrer, she doesn't always get the credit. She is, of course, the athlete with all those frustrating fourth place finishes in the Olympic Games. In Praggelato 2006, you can remember 4 times she finished in fourth place in the 10-kilometre classic, in this very race, which was then called the double pursuit, and also in the 30-kilometre freestyle mass start. And then in Whistler, incredibly, in the 15 kilometres mass start pursuit, she was fourth yet again. And the fourth place also plagued her in the World Championships in her time. But she has had some success in Sapporo. She was a silver medalist over 30 kilometres in classic style, and also got a bronze in the pursuit in the 2005 championships in Oberstdorf. But the gold that she's sought so long and hard, that has never come her way.
As you say, all these fourth positions, I wonder if Styrer, her main aim, obviously almost just a year to the Olympics in Sochi, does she want to put all those fourth places behind her and secure that gold medal? Of course she does.
Well, she's only a 2-time winner of World Cup races, so, you know, she's a very consistent performer, but just hasn't had all the fortune. And now you can see here, they're really closing in now, and Iksanova's just not been able to make any progress. And actually, if she was taken up, it might actually just help her to work with some other racers here, because she's not making any progress out on her own. Kowalczyk for Poland, Kristin Stormer-Styrer for Norway, and that is the 1-2, and they are just getting further and further away. 6,000 metres means 1,500 metres to transition, and the switch of poles and skis to the freestyle leg. And here's the group of, 5 who look as if they might be the favourites to fight out for the bronze medal, because the next group are worryingly detached.
So much damage. The pace, as usual, from Kowalczyk, it's just punished, absolutely destroyed this field. Just a few other strong athletes, Ishida's there, Kilonen, but it really has. Look at the damage to the rest of the best. Huge gap at this stage in the race. Only 19 minutes 23 seconds gone.
Yeah, it's a real pity that we haven't got Marit Bjørgen here to take part in this, because it really does lack something without those two. But Marit Bjørgen, a straight 5 victories to open the season, then a very clear determination to have fresh legs and lots of power and endurance for the Tour de Ski. Well, there you have Kowalczyk collecting 15 points, as Mike explained to you, towards this BMX Drive trophy. And it won't mean a lot until we get to the end, but breakaway now. And that is number 1, Justyna Kowalczyk, getting away. And this is what I said, on these downhill sections where she can use her power and her body weight is just that much heavier. She is several kilos heavier than Kristin Stormer-Stuyra, and that will pay in her favor on the drop-down descent.
Absolutely, all these little big factors. I do think that Stuyra, her skis, the grip wax was very light, and that helps you on the glide factor. But look at Kowalczyk, she very rarely has been slipping. Look behind at Stuyra, she's slipping. She's not getting the purchase through the wax.
And that's why the stride is shorter. You can just see there the difference, that you've got fantastic extension from Kowalczyk. And here, you know, what Stuyra is having to do is just nurse herself home into transition. There's not much else she can do, but it does give the edge to Justyna Kowalczyk. The thing about Justyna Kowalczyk is she is one of those racers who can do it from the front. She can live in her own world, and she's got that metronomic pace supported by the notes from her coaches, as which she gathers in as she goes around the course. So being out front is not a problem for her. It
can be for so many athletes. There's a psychology out front where you've got a lot to lose. If they catch me, I'm going to feel less good about myself. But Justyna is brutal with herself and today with the rest of the field, completely breaking them up.
Kowalczyk, who hasn't won the World Cup Series now for a couple of seasons. She was runner-up to, well, in fact, she was runner-up to Bjørgen. She won it in 2011 and 2010, but was second best to Marit Bjørgen last year. And there, now you get another chance to see this descent. And there's Skofterud, again, the heavier athlete, taking advantage there of that drop down and using her body weight to just actually gain speed and propulsion.
Attacking into the corner, and Skofterud's skis were faster. She knows that the previous time in relation to Kowalczyk. But Stuyra, she put in a good fight, only losing it in the very, very final climb.
So, Mike, coming up to transition, and here comes Justyna right up to this end, I would imagine, to change her poles and change her skis. So what's the difference? Because the boots actually are sort of multifunctional. Multifunctional.
You can see the high up, almost like a skating boot, good support around the cuff around the ankle. So the skis are shorter, the skis are more rigid, the poles are longer. The classic poles were coming from armpit to top of shoulder. Now they're coming from chin to nose. Much, much longer poles in the skating action.
And if you think that's easy, it's not, because it's like what the difference here is that you come in at racing pace. It's not like biathlon where you actually start to prepare for the range and you're trying to bring your heart rate down. Here you're rushing in and you're changing equipment when your heart is really pumping.
It's a stress. It looks quite simple, but it's quite stressful. As you say, your legs are absolutely fatigued. You're a little panic state because you know that the clock is ticking, and that's when you make mistakes. You go into a little hyper panic, and then you've got to clip into the ski poles. I think the biathletes are a wee bit quicker actually at getting into their ski poles after they're shooting, but all these drills must be practiced endlessly.
Well, I think the whole thing about it is that the biathletes are very, very practiced, aren't they, at the transition of coming in, having run like a rabbit to be steady as a rock.
Ah, that's right. So disciplined, able to transfer from the incredible push in the tracks to calm and stable.
Keegan Randall pretty well down the field, and also down the field there Falla, and Kowalczyk with a significant advantage. And you would think that with that advantage going out there, this is already a race that it's hers to lose. 11 seconds. Skofterud, who sort of recovered to get ahead of the rest, and Kolonen improving. Shevchenko in there as we go out on the skating leg, the first of two rotations. Well, this is a big breakaway now, building on that 11-second advantage that she had exiting transition. Kristin Stormer-Styrer hasn't even got her in sight at the moment, and well, if this goes the way it looks as if it's going to go, Mike, you're looking at the lady there, or now you can see Justyna Kowalczyk, who is heading for the top of the World Cup rankings here. And a different feeling when you come out of Classic and go freestyle.
Very much, and it's quite brutal because from the changeover, David, it's just nothing for the next 1.8 kilometers but climbing, really. And it's almost as if you've been out for a very fast, well, 7.5 kilometer run, and then you're jumping onto a bike and you've got to push those pedals around as hard as you can. It's a very different feeling. It takes you at least a kilometer to get into the new feeling.
Now have a look at this. Kristin Stormer-Styrer being closed on here. It was 11 seconds. Look at this as they hit the line here, and you can see the gap there freezing as they come up to the line, and 26 seconds and counting, and it's Kristin Stormer-Styrer. 4 on the left of your picture is Styrer, 2 is Skofterud, who's got ahead and now looking that much more effective.
I can't believe it, David. It's Skofterud who's leading the chase pack. She was only 21 seconds behind at the changeover. Already they've lost 10 seconds on
12 actually.
12,
she's lost
sorry.
12 seconds. So, you know, that is amazing. And what of course Kowalczyk's done is she got the message, realised they were in a muddle and a mess, and turned the screw up that 900-metre climb.
I'm just slightly concerned. Of course, she's amazingly strong, but she really has tried to go for the psychological destruction of the rest of the field. But in doing so, it was like a sprint race for her up to the top of the first steep climb.
But it's very interesting watching her ski, though. You know, the rhythm that she's got, the connectivity. And actually, well, we'll see her in a moment. Ishida now. Here's a surprise. Ishida, better known for her classic prowess, pressing on here. Ankalonen far side in the blue of Finland, shoulder to shoulder with Skofterud. And there at the back there is Kristin Stormer-Styrer. What I really like about her is you see those skis don't really come off the snow. There's contact all the time, and because of the contact and the power that she's putting through, that's what's taking her away from the opposition.
So she didn't have this form. Remember in Gällivare, the first race, she was what, 1 minute 20 behind Marit Bjørgen.
So she's coming up to another bonus moment. Now, the way she's going now, she's got the bumper, she's now going for the headlights. Think of it as a car kit, and if she maintains this, she'll get the whole of the car by the time the season's over.
That X-Drive is looking quite good for her, absolutely. And that's a good strategy from Kowalczyk. She's read this race well, but you need to have the engine to carry through that positive strategy.
These are beautiful trails, wide, inviting, and it's just a pity that it's not as competitive as we would have wished. There's nobody there to take on Kowalczyk, and that is the problem in the women's division. You've got Kowalczyk and Marit Bjørgen. Those are the two all-rounders, and they are so superior to the rest of the women's circuit. And you know, when I say that, I don't mean it to be disrespectful. The women you're watching in picture here chasing Kowalczyk are superb, fantastic athletes.
This one you didn't mention, of course, Therese Johaug. She's in the bracket, I think, of Kowalczyk and Marit Bjørgen this season. She started well, but of course she's not here either.
Indeed, and that's a worthy note there, Mike, of Therese Johaug, who's also biding her time. And here you can see in slow motion, just have a look at the rhythm here and the power that she's generating.
I think power is the word. I'm sure in terms of technical efficiency, Justyna's would agree. Maybe she's not the best, but she's certainly got the strength to carry those moves, and she does get all the transfer and the flow of energy through her routine, her technique.
From time to time, she does train with the men to give herself a really hard target to work with. But, you know, in a sense, and I don't mean in a wrong sense, but she is very much someone who is alone, can work with others, but actually, you know, is talented in the sense that she can prepare herself for the hardest test on her own. So another 15 points. As I said, she got the bumper, got the headlight, going for the driver's seat, I suppose, in the next event. Ixanova, Steyr, Anna Haag for Sweden moving up there. That's a little bit encouraging. I thought opening season performances from Anna Haag were a bit modest, to be honest. And there, the crowd can just turn around from the stadium. Again, a good design point here on this course, that they get multi-options in terms of watching the athletes. And they'll be full of admiration, I'm sure.
Look at the length of the ski poles. We'll see it again with Kowalczyk. Her hand is very much higher than her head when she plants the ski pole, putting all her force through her arm, through the pole to bring the upper body into the flow of energy.
And Skofterud looking so much more comfortable on this freestyle leg. Skofterud is an athlete I've always warmed to. Based out of Mjøndalen, 32 years of age, so Marit Bjørgen generation. She's grown up all that time. She's been a good team player, but individually, you know, still looking for that elusive first World Cup victory. 6 times she's been a runner-up, and the last time was in Davos over 15 kilometers freestyle last season. But how frustrating to be a runner-up. I can remember, actually, I think many years ago in Kuusamo, she was actually given the victory and then taken away and given to Shevchenko, I think, on that occasion, when they got a muddle with all the computers. Which is, she was actually sitting, I think, on the, no, actually, they started the medal ceremony and she was, or the flower ceremony, and she was actually on the top step of the podium at that time. So Justina, if she gets these 100 points, it's going to be 485 points, 35 more than Marit Bjørgen, 35 more than Kiken Randall. So it's going to be significant, because she's going to go to the Tour de Ski as the World Cup leader, wearing that bib.
She doesn't often look back. Kowalczyk never shows that weakness of the fear or the caring of what anyone else is doing. She sticks to her own plan, but on the little turnaround she couldn't but have a little look back, and I think she was amazed to see that they are almost a minute behind her.
Have a look at this, the whole of transition. Now you're looking at 100 meters down and 100 meters, well, more than that, 100 meters around the other side, and Skofterud actually having a look. Where the heck is she?
Nearly 50 seconds.
I mean, you know, they came out, and what were they, you know, 11, 12 seconds off. That was the deficit for Kristin Stormer Steyr, and that's an extraordinary piece of work by Justina Kowalczyk. And the reality is, Mike, that this second group have accepted it, and they are now racing for second and third steps on the podium.
Well, it's just very little they can do. If they up their tempo, like put in a sprint, they're going to suffer. They're going to push themselves back eventually. So they're just on their safe limits of holding the pulse rate, the intensity that they are giving at this moment. There's nothing much they can do about Kowalczyk.
And Kowalczyk heading for another 15,000 Swiss franc payday, and they don't come much more straightforward than this, I've got to say. And a total domination over her rivals. And just looking a little further down the field, Mike, there's nobody who's really making any big inroads into this. There's nobody who's really come up. That second group is pretty well established. Skofterud standing quite tall there. Ishida, again, diminutive in comparison to Skofterud in terms of her physique, but I'm impressed the way that Ishida is freestyling here. This is as good as we've seen her.
It's a lot better, it really is. She has been working on it. You can still see there's just by her own design, the knees come in a little, which puts her straight onto the edges, so it limits your glide time on each ski, therefore efficiency time.
Interesting, there's Shevchenko now coming up to Skofterud, and Kolonen in there. Now, of these women, I'm just wondering whether Kolonen, who is the sprinter, if she can stay with this pack. Kolonen, who is, what, she's about fifth in this line there, and it's Ixanova, the Russian, who's at the back, now getting detached. The better form for her coming in the classic division, and Shevchenko taking it on now.
Very impressive. You were talking about Kyllönen. I was looking at the 10-kilometer classic 3 days ago, and I thought that Kyllönen, she was only 14 seconds. She was second place to Kowalczyk. I thought she'd stay in with Kowalczyk for the classic and go for survival in the skating. I really thought the Finn would manage to try and hold on to Kowalczyk, but no chance to date.
Just under 3 kilometers for Kowalczyk to go, and well, if she falls over, skis off the side of the track, falls down a bank, that's about the only thing that could happen to her, for her not to win this race. Now, Kyllönen on the right of your picture there needs to come up. She needs to come up here and stay on turns, because she has got the sprinting speed. You can see she's quite tall compared to Ishida, and now you can see that the order changing, and Kristin Stormer-Styrer up there, Vibeke Skofterud on these climbs. You can see the heavier athlete, and this is where she struggles. Losing time, absolutely right. The cyclists know it when there's hill stages. But again, she's got the strength of Skofterud, and Iksanova as well. She's struggling a little on these big steep climbs in the skating. I'm so impressed with Shevchenko 11, and I'm so pleased that she's back into, well, not winning ways, but hopefully podium ways. Yeah, her eyes will be very much on the World Championships. Ukraine exactly don't have multi-chances in February, and Skofterud breathing heavily at the back of those 6 there. Just looking at Shevchenko's results, David, her best in skating in the freestyle this year is 32nd in Kusamo. Here's the next chasing group, Deborah Agraita of Italy there, wearing 29, and just leading in all white there, Anna Haag for Sweden, and 13 coming up here. This is Ingvild Ersberg making a little bit of progress and leading now what is effectively the second chasing group there. So Norway, Italy, Sweden, Germany, and just trying to have a look in there to see which of the German racers it was. I don't think it's Denise Herrmann, because she wasn't wearing a pink hat. I think it was Zeller. Zeller, probably a good shout there, Mike. Now Ersberg, who we saw there leading, as you say, the third group, she looks so totally tired today, and that's from making the finals 4 times around at full intensity, the sprint races yesterday. I suppose you could say that Justina not getting into the final, a bit of a blessing in disguise, because she's got fresh legs. But then you could say Skofterud, who wasn't involved in the sprints yesterday, same deal. Well, she should have been perhaps a little brighter. But here you've got a great little tussle here for second and third as it builds up the chase here. Kristin Stormer-Styrer now looking better. Seemed to have gone through a sort of difficult patch, but now better. Takes it up from Shevchenko. And there, the purple of Ishida and Kyllönen of Finland sharing third place in that little group, and then Vibeke Skofterud, and then Iksanova of Russia, and they're well clear of the next chasing pack. And here's Kristin Stormer-Styrer, confident this is where she needs to make her move on the climb, and Kyllönen goes ahead of Skofterud into third place in this group. Skofterud trying to recover, Ishida drops back, Iksanova hanging on at the back there for Russia. I think she really is just hanging on. It's survival. As soon as there's 2 or 3 meters separated, your spirit drops down a little. This is the technical corner for Kowalczyk. And remember, in this stadium, there's a really long run-in. Now, that is in Anne Kyllönen's favour. So if she stays in contact and it comes down to a sprint, on the evidence of what we've seen so far, she could be the racer that's going to come up and finish in second place. Quite possibly Kowalczyk in the... Well, this isn't Kowalczyk in the foreground. No. Interesting news from the Finns yesterday. I haven't heard it about the cross-country, but Mike, you remember the awful days of 2001, the doping infringements that happened at the World Championships there. Yeah, shocking. And subsequently, Finnish Nordic sport split asunder from the major federation. The alpine skiers went first and said they didn't want any association. Then the ski jumpers split, the Nordic combiners, and really you had all these individual federations hunting for sponsorship in a very, very difficult climate in Finland, because most of the exposure actually was done by the Finnish journalists themselves in those days. But now the news came through last night that the ski jumpers have decided to join back in the main federation as of the 1st of January. And I just wonder how long it's going to be before the cross-country skiers opt to make the same decision, because I think the sum of the parts is going to be greater and a better way for Finnish sport in the Nordic division to come back and re-establish itself.
I think so, and probably will encourage a few more sponsors, which they so badly need in all the programmes.
You've got to draw a line somewhere, sometime. And there you can see the chase is on. Steyr, look at coming up there, 5, that's Kolonen moving into second place on the tails of Stormer Steyr. 11, Shevchenko there, Ishida, Skofterud. The sprint is on from these guys now because they really are moving with some pace. Justyna Kowalczyk all on her own some here. Just has to be careful.
Look how careful she is, Bea. She doesn't want to risk anything, but she's got, well, nearly a minute. Oh, she was a little bit delicate.
Well, it's a perfect example of how she just, after all that she's achieved, is still not on cornering at speed.
No, it's Skofterud leading this charge. Shevchenko's desperately wanting a podium. Kilonen's placing herself nicely, as you say, probably the fastest sprinter in this group.
I think all that Kolonen has to do is negotiate that corner to swing into the straight. She does not have to do anything amazing. She just needs to keep out of trouble here, because I think she should probably have the legs of the rest of this group here.
Shevchenko was going wide. She doesn't really want to lead down this run in. I would say the athlete in second or third has a better attack possibility. It's Skofterud leading.
Yeah, Kolonen let her skis run down pretty nicely, but here comes Justyna, and it's 2 victories in Canada. 200 points, 15,000 Swiss francs. Thank you very much. Okay, Marit, you want to take my Tour de Ski title? I'll see you after Christmas.
That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant.
Now here we go. Skofterud leading the charge. Kristin Stormer Steyr, 5 there. That's Anne Kolonen. Ishida coming in. What a finish. What a finish. And Skofterud brings the power forward here. Anne Kolonen on the far side sprinting. And she's got the fence to work with as well. And the crowd on that far side. Kolonen gets the better of Skofterud. Ishida fighting. So is Steyr. Kolonen pumping it out here. Pumping. Skofterud fighting. But it is Anne Kolonen who takes the runners-up spot. Skofterud in second place, and you can see there that in fact Kowalczyk eased off, and that's why the gap is only 35 seconds at the end of the race.
Well, Skofterud, she thought she was passed and beaten, but then she found this little second attack, and I thought that Skofterud got it, but it looks like it's 1/10 for third place.
Well, I think, you know, also Anne Kolonen much more accomplished at lunging and putting the leg out there. Ersberg, whoa! Randall coming through to take Ersberg. So once again, top sprinters, and Randall getting something out of the day there. 20 Anna Haag for Sweden. And another American charge here. Ida Sargent through. Well, Keegan Randall, I guess she can be pretty pleased with that at the end of the day to come through. And what it does say to you is, unlike Chandra Crawford from Canada, it just shows you how much work that Keegan Randall has done to develop herself from being an out-and-out sprinter into a middle distance racer. I'm not convinced at 30 kilometers that she can go with the best of the best, but the fact that she can go for 15 kilometers in both disciplines says a lot about her determination and application.
And technique as well, it's a part of it, but you've got to put the mileage and the endurance for Keegan Randall to get into the top 10 here today.
So it is Kowalczyk's race, and Kolonen the best for Finland. Skofterud is third, and Steyr for Norway in fourth place. Ishida gutsy there in 5. That's a very good result for her. Shevchenko showing good signs of form. Iksanova the best for Russia in 7th. Randall in 8th. Ersberg 9th. Anna Haag completing the top 10.
Holly Brooks will be disappointed, I think. 28th position there, 2:51 behind. She is a real fighter, Holly Brooks.
Olga Rotcheva as well showed up early on, but again couldn't maintain it through the freestyle examination. And you sort of wonder what's going to happen when Bjørgen and Kowalczyk decide to retire. I think Bjørgen's the more likely to retire in time, but you know, I guess that in her mind there's no reason why she shouldn't go to Sochi. And so they're going to be around at least for 2 seasons.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. And I think that, well, Marit Bjørgen will without a doubt be watching this race today from her training base, and I think she'll be a little concerned about how strong Kowalczyk looked today. And this is altitude as well, David, 1,400 metres here. And Kowalczyk said it's exactly what she wanted. She'll use this as racing and as almost a little mini altitude training.
Yeah, I mean, Kowalczyk in the first part of the season just has gradually just got better building up to Canmore, and you know, skipped Quebec to come straight over here and to prepare, and it's really paid off for her.
Stability in training and no need to travel or a second travel journey. Very wise.
Well, it's been a success coming to Canmore. It usually is. It's a very well prepared track here, and I have to say hats off to Pierre Migneret. I think the sprint course was absolutely excellent, right up there with the best that we've seen in the world. It offered everything, both to the competitors in terms of terrain and the opportunity to attack, rest, counter-attack, and the straightaway, as you can see there, long enough to really providing a fantastic finish yesterday, and certainly for second place, a great finish here today. Second and third places.
It was brilliant. This is Chandra Crawford coming in well, over 5 minutes behind. She tried to stick with the early pace, but it just too much for her. She is an out-and-out sprinter.
You just sense, Mike, that Olympic day in Torino, up in Pragelato for the sprint, that was her day.
I wonder if in Sochi she's going to have another great day like that. She is a big race person, a personality, and some athletes function that way. They become more relaxed, don't mind the pressure at all.
Hey.
Who asked me to do this, she said. Where's my coach? I need words. But not so Justyna Kowalczyk. She is an extraordinary athlete. And the Tour de Ski is beautifully set up. Now have a look at the sprint here. Kilonen, there, you see the track craft.
She brought a look at Kilonen, her left foot just coming through to clinch it. The right foot was definitely a centimetre behind Skufterud's. Very wise to bring that left foot forward. There, clinched it.
And Skufterud, you can't criticise Skufterud because she really used her power there. So, confirmation of the women's skiathlon, Justyna Kowalczyk, and there it is, ahead of Kilonen, 34th, almost 35 seconds, the differential, and look at these gaps opening up here. Deborah Agraita of Italy, that's a noteworthy performance there in the top 15. Maika Kaspersen-Faller, winner of the sprint yesterday, but 2 minutes and 16 behind. And Ida Ingsmar-Dotter in the sprint yesterday, but no points today for finishing in 31st place. Well, I think it was interesting, Mike, but obviously we need somebody to take on the likes of Justyna, and it's going to be very interesting to see how competitive the men's race is going to be, considering, of course, that in terms of the World Cup, we're without Peder Northug. Of course, Emil Jonsson yesterday, by winning the sprint, went to the top of the men's World Cup rankings. More of that in a moment. And there you can see that the men's race at 2020, that's an hour earlier for you watching on Eurosport across the United Kingdom. So we'll be back for that in just under 30 minutes from now, as we leave you with the women who occupied the podium places today. Who had a good day? I think Anne Colonen had a fair day. Skofterud at the end, gutsy, really tough to get onto the podium. And I was impressed with Ishida, definitely. But in a class of her own, if everybody else is championship, then the only one who's premiership is Justina Kowalczyk.
Yeah, a little class of her own today. She took a long time to snap, to dispose of Steyrer Stormer. But once she broke, she was gone.
From Mike and myself, David Goldstrom, thanks very much for your company. We'll be back with you for the men's race in just under 20 minutes.